Hi. We had an interesting 4-minute video. It seems everybody's suggesting you go to sleep. I'll try to keep you awake though, like you listen to my talk. I'm Latika Rana. I've spent many years in the jungles of India. The first slide really is what it's all about. I chose to go off the beaten track and do something that I wanted to do that everybody thought wasn't a great idea. Especially family, people sort of said, oh my God, you can't just go off and do your own thing, but I did. Looking back, I seem to remember I had tigers in my life always. I'll get to the side maybe. Right from childhood, you know all these figures. I read about them, I dreamt about them, I had posters up in my room. My father was on the Indian Board of Wildlife, and through him, I grew up around people who really became the inspiration for me in my work. People like Mrs. Gandhi, Billy Arjun Singh and his leopards and his tiger, Tara, Dr. Karan Singh, Dr. Salim Ali, with whom I spent many weekends learning about birds, Dr. Ranjit Singh, Chuck McDougall, the eminent photographers Godpare and M. Krishnan, and Dr. H.S. Pawar, who was not only involved with Project Tiger but also founded the Wildlife Institute of India, where I did my work on elephants in Rajaji National Park. This was a path setter in itself because I got a scholarship from the British Council and then told them that actually I didn't want to study in England, I wanted to stay in India. And it took quite a lot of convincing, but I actually went there for just a very short period and came back and did all my field work in Rajaji National Park, where I studied what was happening to the elephant population. At that time there was this new Ganga Canal had come up and divided the population into two, and a lot of elephants were getting killed in that. After I finished my master's, I wanted to go back to Kashmir, where my grandparents lived, and that's really the place I've always called home. And I wanted to study the hangul. The hangul is a deer endemic to Kashmir. Unfortunately, just about the time I was getting ready to do this, the terrorists attacked the family, and they actually kidnapped a lot of our staff and killed them, and then used an incendiary bomb and blew up the house. Luckily for me, my grandparents and all of us were in Delhi, and we watched this happening on DD News. That event changed my life. It not only deprived me of the place I called home, it meant that I could never go back to Kashmir. I mean, I haven't been back since '92. It also meant I couldn't study the hangul and the snow leopard, and I had to think of what I could do. At that stage, the last real study on the tiger had been done in 1968 by George Schaller, and Dr. H.S. Pawar suggested that I try and persuade the government to allow me to do some research. I got admission into Oxford, which was also a strange story because I met Dawn and the lady who was in charge of graduate admissions at a campfire in Bandhavgarh National Park. She took my interview right then and there and offered me a position. I spent from 1994 to the year 2000 in the jungles in Bandhavgarh, going back to Oxford 2 months of the year. I was in the forests for anything between 10 to 18 hours a day, depending on what I was doing. Up close and really personal with the tigers. I did the first real study on the tiger in India. It's strange since this is our national animal that we'd never had somebody do this till then. I used to work in the park and I actually, with the help of IIT Delhi, made some camera traps which are now being used all over, and did a lot of monitoring. I got photographs like this and learned about tigers and things that people just never talk about, you know. The fact that tigers are really clever. They use tools. We've got, chimpanzees using tools. Jane Goodall made that really famous. But I've seen tigers using tools. I've seen tigers seek other tigers for help. If they have porcupine quills under their chin, they'll actually go around calling and looking for another tiger to pull out the quills. I've had tigers adapt to different situations in front of me. People say tigers are solitary, but I've seen unrelated up to 12 animals using the same area without a conflict. I got to know them, and I got to understand that there was just so much more to them than just being beautiful and being probably the one charismatic species that everybody knows about. And I documented all of this information, made cards like these, and if you look at this, it has, every tiger has stripes on it which are unique. It's like a fingerprint, and the left is different from the right side, and you can identify them using this. So we made these cards for every tiger, and at that time I was monitoring about 37 tigers in the park on a daily basis, to the extent that I would know if they walked on this path where they'd come out 2 days later. I knew it. And we did studies on different aspects of tiger conservation. We made family trees to see how they were connected. And there was a lot of concern that, like the cheetahs, there'd be inbreeding genetics, which would be a problem for tiger conservation. But we didn't find any such evidence. And, even though the entire population seemed to be linked at Bandhavgarh. So I'll just take a minute and introduce you to some of my tigers and tell you a little bit about tigers. Tigers are really the largest cats in the world. This one on the screen is one we used to call Takdir, because everybody who came to Bandhavgarh at that time saw him. So it was in their Takdir to see him. So he was called Takdir. Tigers reach maturity at 4, tigresses at 5, which prevent siblings from mating. That's one inbuilt mechanism that they have. I watched tigers grow up. The youngest ones I've seen were these, which were 11 days old. This is the first time they came out of the den. They can have up to 5 cubs in a litter, though it's very rare that they'll bring up all 5 to maturity. Tigresses will change dens several times during the time that they're bringing up cubs. And it's incredible that they can blend so well. If I zoomed out, you would hardly see these cubs against the leaves. People say they're not social, but that's not true. They live in family groups. The males will go off and patrol, but will come back to meet their own families. And this, in fact, is not a mother, father, and cubs. It's the elder brother that's come back. He's, at least 3 years older than the cubs in the picture, and he came back to meet the family. So this is a unique picture. Now, the important thing about tigers is that they actually go through school. And for 2 years, the tigress will teach them everything they have to know to become a real wild tiger. So, and what we've also understood is that human beings can't substitute this education. So we've never been able to release a captive bred tiger in the wild. So today I'm going to tell you that tigers are not going to go extinct. Okay? We're not going to have that problem because we have more we have more tigers in captivity in zoos than we have in the wild. The problem is we're going to lose the wild tigers in the jungles. That's the real issue. We watched tigers grow up in this whole period of education, and it takes between 2 to 3 years, and when they start hunting, they'll, do things like pick up a little baby alive and give it to the cub. And the fawn will run away and the cub will try and catch it. And I've seen tigers sitting with their paws out with a live cheetal fawn in there, and they will not cut. Not one drop of blood is shed, and they're just playing. It's incredible. These are moments that you couldn't get for all the money in the world. It's an incredible experience. I lived with and worked with a family of tigers in Bandhavgarh. The matriarch is the one in the center of this picture called Sita. She's very special to us now because most of the tigers in Bandhavgarh are her progeny. But not only Bandhavgarh, now her progeny have been used to reintroduce tigers into Panna. So she's really made history because she lived to be the second longest living tigress in the wild, and now her cubs are reintroducing tigers back into Panna. These are just some pictures. You know, it's a strange thing people don't understand. Some things we need to remember, things we forget we know. Tiger conservation is not rocket science. Tigers need habitat, water, prey, and protection. You give them that, they pretty much manage everything else on their own. And after spending the 6 years in the forest with them, I realized that academic research was a luxury I couldn't afford. There was just too much at stake, things were at a real crisis, and I needed to break out of this and do something about it. In 2005, we decided to shift from Bandhavgarh to Kanha. We looked for some land that was outside the buffer zone of the park. This was degraded land, overgrazed, all the trees had been cut, totally covered with lantana. Part of it was the town dump. Part of it, they even had some areas where they were using it as temporary ghats for burning people. And we looked for this land, we bought it, and this is what it looked like. You can see on the left, the river's the boundary, and the left you can see how much lantana there was. There was nothing there. We fenced the property, we used fire, we removed lantana. We had 60 people working for 3 months to physically pull out lantana. You have to pull it out and turn it upside down, because if you take it out and leave it, it re-roots. It's crazy. The land after lantana was removed. We built dams and made water holes, and the grasses came back on their own. The meadows came back. Today I have over 800 deer living in this, and the Barasingha come back to this area. So, just to show you, thank you. If you see that picture in 2005, the tree and the rock in that is the same tree and the rock in 2009. So you can make a difference. And we have, very specially, a residential leopard pair. They bred, they have 2 cubs, 9.5 months old. We see them 2 or 3 times a week. They live on the land, and they've come back and made Singinava the home. The name Singinava means protectors of the sacred forest, and is an inspiration from a traditional land use management form used by the Sherpas in the Annapurna and Everest regions of Nepal. So, as I said, I didn't think I had the luxury to do academic research anymore, and decided that I would dedicate my life to doing something that would really make a difference in the field. I founded the Singinava Foundation. Through this, we do different types of work connected with tiger conservation, directly or indirectly. One of the more direct ways is that we actually raised funds and built 5 water holes within Kanha Tiger Reserve with the help of the park. This has created territories for tigers, and now the population has gone up by 6 tigers in this region, while dogs are also now using this area. We do health camps. These are regions that are really primarily tribal, and most of these people had never been to a doctor before. So when we got doctors from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences to go out there, and then we followed it up with sending people who were critically ill to hospitals, it really changed lives. We also do things to create awareness. I got artists from across the world to come together for the tiger, and these were 16 artists from 11 countries around the world. We had a great time. We worked with the tribal children, we did workshops, everybody painted and sculpted, and we had the tribal potters in, and all of this work is going to be auctioned and used for projects that have been defined by the Madhya Pradesh Forest Department as being vital for conservation. We also wanted to look at alternate livelihood options for the communities living around the park. So one of the things that I came up with, inspired by the way from a TED lecture by Professor Amy Smith, we used lantana to make charcoal briquettes. And the total technology cost, the total equipment cost is 300 rupees. And they make ₹1.50 on every lantana briquette that they sell. So it's very, very good. It's also good because It prevents them from cutting green wood illegally to make illegal charcoal to sell to all the tourism organizations because they use them in tandoors and things. So this is, it's been tested. We've tweaked the formula to suit our own requirements, and we're now going to be, this year, it's going to be used in about 6 villages across the buffer zone of the park. And the MP government actually wants to replicate it all over the state. We also work with the school. We have lots of projects at the school. One of the things I did was actually just write to all my friends saying, hey, if you're going to retire a laptop, can you send it to me? Because we have tribal children going to these schools, and the schools are only till class 8. After class 8, they need to go to a city. And they don't speak English, and they don't know how to use computers, and it's a huge drawback. So what we did was we just took all these old laptops and computers and kept them at the lodge because we have electricity. The school doesn't have electricity, and the kids come in and they use the computers, and we have a teacher coming in, and we teach them English and we teach them computing, and they just go back so charged, and they've been exposed to a whole new world. I also had a competition where I asked them to identify things like what they felt were the most important problems in their lives connected with the environment, and to come up with solutions as children. And the things they came up with are incredible, and one of the things that we're doing is actually changing an entire village to being completely plastic friendly, and this is an initiative by the school, so it's very, very exciting. This is some of the stuff that we do, all of the normal stuff, but we also have a lot of projects with the foundation that we're doing. I don't go out and get big grants and do things. I do small things so I can make my own money, because every 100 rupees makes a difference. And for every 100 rupees I put into all of this work, the villagers and the park people join in and help me with labor and help in kind. So it really multiplies it 100-fold and makes it that much more effective. So I just want to remind you why I'm doing what I'm doing. In 1947, we had about 350 million people in India and 40,000 tigers. Today, we have 1.2 billion plus people in 1,706 tigers. Okay, it's a serious, serious problem. The government just isn't taking it seriously enough. We really need to know what's going on. I mean, this is a tiger whose foot was caught in a trap, another tiger that was injured, and they became man-eaters and eventually had to be put down. But this is not the real problem. The real problem is that the tigers that I know and I love end up like this. And it's not one or two, but hundreds of skins and hundreds of bags of bones that we find. And the legal system just isn't strict enough. The guys who were put into prison for this are out today. And they were carrying on with their business on mobile phones from the prison. So it's a real issue. And, a friend of mine said, will we stand by silent and watch the slaughter? Watch the forests fall? Watch as wild creatures fall off the map of India. Or do we want an India that is silenced of the roar of the tiger? Do we want to live in a country where forests are barren, its lands infertile? Or will we stand up and fight so that we do not tell our children, once there were tigers? Thank you.